OK, well, Arsenal, like we said, it's Aston Villa away at Arsenal at the Emirates tomorrow night. The leaders kept hold of their place at the top by beating Brighton just.
And here is Saka again, and he's already got 4 to aim for Odegaard. Urged to shoot, and does! Brilliant strike from Martin Odegaard. Declan Rice on duty, into the near post and in! And they have made it 2. An own goal of Arteta. Well, Arsenal strike from a set piece again. Ayari, oh brilliant off the upright. And the rebound is in, and Brighton have a lifeline. That's a nice little ball inside, Binte! Oh, that is something very, very special. David Raya at full stretch. That is magnificent.
I was going to ask you something else, but you just said what a save that was from Raya.
Save of the season.
Is he becoming the best goalkeeper in the Premier League?
Yeah, I'd probably say he's up there. We look at Donnarumma, but this save for me is unbelievable. Minter knows exactly. It's perfect for him. It's on a plate. Bend it in the top corner. It's an unbelievable save. And people say, oh, it looks better because he's not, 6'2", but it's a great save. Instincts, fingertips. That for me is save of the season. It's in a massive moment. That would have made it 2-2. Brighton were on top at that time, and after that, Brighton didn't really have another chance. So it was a massive save. And get some 3 points. So he's a brilliant goalie for sure. To say he's the best, I would probably still go with Donnarumma.
There's so many positives for Arsenal at the moment, all right? But their failure to convert more chances is one thing that they would like to improve on, I'm sure. And the other one is, we know they're playing Villa tomorrow.
Yeah.
They haven't beaten any of the current top 5
no, they haven't.
This season.
Yeah.
And it's Villa at home tomorrow.
Yeah.
So are they 2 reasons to be concerned for Arsenal fans?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you want to win the league, you've got to beat the best sides. And I think they've struggled this season against the top teams. I think, look, they get beat by Liverpool, they draw Man City, get beat by Villa. So these are moments where I think Arsenal have got to be like, right, we're going to go and win this game. We're going to go and win this Premier League. When I watch Man City win it and Liverpool have gone and done it, they've gone and beat the best sides. That's what they do. They turn up and they win. I think Arsenal have to win this game against Villa. It's a massive game for them. And I think there is a bit of concern in the fact they're not scoring loads of goals. They're creating chances, right? And that's your biggest concern as a manager. If you're not even creating the chances, then you're thinking, right, what am I doing wrong? The chances are there, but they're not converting them. Gyökeres, for me, hasn't been good enough. I think they've struggled in front of goal. And there's big moments in games where you've got to put the ball in the back of it. I think he struggled, Gyökeres. Look, Saka, we know he will always make something happen. He can produce moments of brilliance. Trossard on the other side, I think, is having a really good season for them. But I think they've got 4 own goals in December. You're relying on a bit of chaos in and around the box from set pieces. You've got to take your chances. That's got to be a goal. That has to be a goal. That has to find the back of the net. And you get away with it because you win the game 2-1. But when you're playing against, Aston Villa, you're playing against Man City again, you've got to play Liverpool again, them chances you've got to put in the back of the net. And I think that might come back to bite them. I've not been overly convinced with their finishing up front. Gyökeres, for me, out of all the strikers that have come into the Premier League this season, I think he's probably the one that hasn't performed.
Your views on all of these issues, send us a voice note, leave a message or a video on WhatsApp, but especially the voice notes, OK? Use the number 07514 917 075, or you can scan the QR code, which is over there. It's on the side of your screen throughout the show anyway. That takes you straight there. If you want to give us your views on Instagram or Facebook, you can use the hashtag SkySportsFC. Right, let's get straight to the breaking news this morning. Manchester City have opened talks with Bournemouth to negotiate Antoine Semenyo's £65 million release clause. Semenyo's representatives are due in Manchester today to finalise personal terms with City ahead of signing a long-term contract. They're the only club to have contacted Bournemouth about the clause, which is believed to be active for the first 10 days in January. Right, OK, good morning to Jamie O'Hara. Right, with this signing, is it enough to make Manchester City title favourites? We've actually been asking that on a poll this morning as well.
Well, I think they're favourites anyway, but yeah, I think this really strengthens the squad. When you look at him as a player, massive fan of him. I just wish Tottenham could have tried to get involved, but as soon as Man City say that they want him, it's game over for everyone else. Pep Guardiola is an unbelievable manager and he goes into the squad and probably fits in the team quite nicely. You know, they've got Doku playing on the left. They have Cherki, who's been in great form, playing on the right, but he can play in both positions. And I think that, you know, he'll go in, he'll get his opportunity to play pretty quickly. They're in the Champions League, they're fighting for the Premier League title. It's a no-brainer for him. Massive step up, but I think he's more than good enough. And I think it definitely makes them, you know, a stronger team and a better team. So,
but if you already had them as title favourites,
yeah,
adding Semenyo will certainly help, but also it stops other clubs getting him and strengthening themselves. It kind of accidentally weakens the opposition as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. You know, when you've got a player everyone's after, £65 million release clause, I mean, it's a great deal from his agent to get that, you know, to happen, because he's obviously a player who's looked to make the step up. But, yeah, it's exactly what it does. Manchester City beat everyone else to the... You know, Liverpool have been after him. You know, Arsenal would have loved him, but they've got players on the left. You know, Tottenham, they're not in the race for him when Man City are involved. But look, Liverpool would have definitely wanted him. I know that for a fact. So it weakens them. It's a player that they want that they can't get, but makes Manchester City stronger. It's a great signing. I think he's probably the best player outside of the top six in the Premier League. When you're looking at players who can make the step up, who can be the player who can go in and, you know, play Champions League football, be consistent week in, week out. Semenyo's definitely been that player for me, so it's a good signing that for Manchester City.
Yeah, OK, 65% of the viewers are saying that this signing would make Manchester City...
They're already favourites.
Title favourite. Well, you have said that throughout, haven't you?
They're favourites. You know, they've been there and done it. They're 2 points behind Arsenal. I know we're going to talk about it later on, but everyone's saying Arsenal are favourites. I'm not convinced Arsenal are that great. Own goals and that have been their best player in December for sure. Manchester City are showing already now that they know how to get it done. We've seen this so many times. After Christmas, Man City put their foot down. They're signing Semenyo, big statement signing, strengthens the team. They're scoring goals. They've got Haaland up front. All the players are improving. I'm telling you now, Manchester City are going to win this Premier League. Arsenal, look, they've started great. They are not favourites. They have not won the Premier League for a long period of time. Manchester City know how to win Premier League titles. So anyone who says they're not favourites, they're 2 points behind. They ain't 10 points behind. They're 2 points behind Arsenal. It's.
Well, City proved that they can win without Erling Haaland scoring, because they beat Nottingham Forest on Saturday.
The ball round the corner. Reinders is in, and Reinders scores. It hasn't taken Manchester City long. 2.5 minutes after the restart. By Nunes, back for Gibbs White. Igor Jesus. Dominguez waiting in the middle. But it was Hutchinson that found the touch. There it is again. And he's heading down this side and brilliantly put away by Cherki. A magnificent strike. Manchester City lead again with 7 minutes to go.
I don't think many people were calling Manchester City a one-man team, but they were saying about the importance of Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
Proving that actually, you know, anyone who was saying they're a one-man team were wrong.
Well, yeah, of course they're not a one-man team. They've got Phil Foden, they've got Cherki, Doku, players that can score. Haaland's your man who's going to get you the 20 goals a season, which I don't think many teams have got in the Premier League. So, yeah, look, they're definitely not a one-man band, that's for sure. They're a great side. Foden, I think, has been brilliant. Cherki's been fantastic, maybe looking like the possible sign in the summer for what they paid for him. So, yeah, look...
Reinders as well.
Yeah, Reinders started really well and then he dropped off a bit, but he looks to have found some form again. So, Man City are in a great spot. You know, they're really good. Their attacking players going forward is absolutely fantastic. You've got no problem with them going forward. Haaland... He's not scoring, loads of goals at the moment, but he will, once it starts firing. But, he occupies centre halves. So sometimes when the ball's going around the box and they're looking for Haaland, they're trying to make something happen. They're so focused on stopping Haaland scoring, all of a sudden Phil Foden bends one in the top corner. Cherki scores one. So they've got players all over the park. The biggest thing for Manchester City, they've got to keep the ball at the back of their net. That's where... Arsenal have been great this season, been solid. Man City have shown that you can get at them in certain times. I think they've improved, but I think it's definitely something that they need to, carry on making sure that they're good at.
Scott Aston, right, it looks like you are closing in on Antoine Semenyo. How important will that signing be for you?
Yeah, I mean, that is a really big sign, isn't it? Especially in the title race. Bringing someone in like that, we know his quality already. I remember first really noticing him last season when City went away to the Vitality and that they absolutely bullied Kyle Walker, who's an international fullback. He was absolutely amazing that day. And since then, he just seems one of those players that's ready to explode at a big club, ready to take on sort of European football and play at that level. We know his quality. And one thing City have been lacking this season, we're talking about goals with Haaland and other players as well, is maybe goals from wide areas. You think about those top teams over the years, Salah, Mane, Mahrez, Sané, Sterling, all these top Premier League winning teams over the past years have had goals from wide areas. And that is what Semenyo will bring to City, which is just another level to our game, really.
Is he going to be right wing for you, left wing for you? Where's the ideal spot for Guardiola to put him?
That is a big question. I mean, when I first heard about Semenyo to City, the rumours, I wasn't really sure where he would fit in. We know that Doku's sort of locked down that left-hand position. He's been injured at the moment, so he hasn't played. Foden's played out there recently. Ryan Cherki likes to play for the middle and come inside, but he has been playing off that right-hand side as well. I think the fact that Semenyo is very two-footed, I think you see his goals with the left foot, goals with the right foot, doesn't really matter to him. I think that versatility is something City have picked out upon. So I think it doesn't matter. I think some days you'll see him on the right-hand side for City, sometimes you see him on the left. Maybe sometimes you'll see him through the middle if Haaland has a rest. I mean, I know City have got Marmoush. I don't know what his future is now, and Savinho as well. But I think we'll see him play all over the field in that front line.
Aston, look, he's a great signing. He really is. I like everything about him. You're right, he can play anywhere. January is coming. Is there another player, I think, at the back that you might need to look at signing? I don't know how much money they've got to spend, Manchester City, but my biggest concern with Manchester City is not so much going forward, it's actually keeping the ball at the back of your net. Is there a centre-half or someone, or a full-back, a right-back that you might want?
I think this question's over that. I mean, when we went into the season, the big question was right back. We've really needed to sign a right back. We wanted Tino Livramento. That didn't work out. But Matheus Nunes, I think, has really stepped up. I've been really impressed by him. And I think City actually do have cover there. Rico Lewis can play there, though sometimes he's not been that great. Kasanov can play there. Left back seems to be an issue for me. That I knew he's gone to the Africa Cup of Nations. Nico Riley's had a great season, but he's getting played week in, week out. There's no rest for him, whether Vardiol shifts there. And then you've got problems at centre back because Nathan Ake, I think, is quite unhappy with his game time. John Stones is injured constantly. We know how good John Stones is, but he just can't stay fit. So I think it depends what happens in the market. I think if someone comes in for Nathan Ake, I think that could be the move that, Crystal Palace maybe some interest there, or Bournemouth, then maybe City look at a centre-back. But actually, I think Semenyo will be probably the only signing that City make in January.
Right, OK, in terms of a signing you made in the summer, Ryan Cherki, how good has he been for you in recent weeks?
He's such a special player, isn't he? I think you know the quality of a player when you get opposition fans coming to you and saying, I watch Manchester City to watch Ryan Cherki. He's that good. He's the reason we watch football, because he's just so creative. He sees things other players don't see. I think statistically now he's getting more assists per 90 than anyone in Premier League history, which is a ridiculous stat considering you've got Kevin De Bruyne and people in there as well. He's just when he gets the ball, like Pep Guardiola says, sometimes you hate him and sometimes you love him. You don't know what he's going to do. I don't think sometimes he knows what he's going to do, but he's a maverick, isn't he? And when he gets that ball, you know he's going to find Haaland, or find Foden, find Reina, as he did the other day. And he's not really the quickest, which is interesting. He's not going to burst past someone with pace, but he's just got these touches and this skill that he can do anything with the football. And I mean, he's been absolutely unbelievable. We knew he was going to be a good sign, I think, when City first brought him in. Maybe he didn't feel like a Pep Guardiola player, and I think that was a lot of questions over, is he a Pep Guardiola player? Is he going to listen to what Guardiola tells him? Well, I think in an interview he said sometimes he doesn't listen to what Guardiola tells him, and Guardiola knows that. But it doesn't matter when he does things like he's been doing over the past few weeks. I mean, the Rabona the other week against Sunderland, I mean, Pep said he wasn't too happy with it maybe, but it doesn't matter, and the fans absolutely love it. And if it works, then City are getting goals. He's doing the magic on the pitch that he needs to. No one's going to be complaining.
Yeah, it's certainly working. Loads of you getting in touch, by the way. We've had a voice note from Rex.
The only way Semenyo would impact the title race for City is if City has injury to the rest of their wingers. I see a Jack Grealish situation with Semenyo.
Aston, what do you think of that? He's basically
Jack Grealish won the treble.
Yeah, I was just saying. I was just going to say he won a lot, Jack Grealish. But I guess his point is that he thinks that Semenyo won't get as much game time as he would like.
I think we need to get away from this idea that Grealish is the be-all and end-all in terms of a failed City signing. I know that, I mean, he won the treble and maybe he didn't hit the heights he wanted, but, you know, this idea that Guardiola, he nullifies players, he takes freedom away from them. What about Doku? What about Sterling? What about Sané? What about Shirky? One player does not sort of tarnish them all that he took the creativity with. I don't know what happened with Grealish. It didn't work out. I think he didn't suit playing against the low block. I think that's the idea. We've seen he's been much better at Everton, but he's not playing against 11 men behind the ball every week. So it's a very different game. Whether Semenyo can adapt to that is a question, obviously, and a rightful question. But I think that Semenyo's got a bit about him that he can bully a player easy. He can bulldoze his way past players with his pace, with his physicality, and he can shoot as well. He scores goals. Grealish wasn't ever a goal scorer. He was always a creator. I mean, Semenyo's got, was it 9 Premier League goals already? So I wouldn't be as worried about Semenyo as I was about Grealish.
OK. All right, Aston, great to speak to you. Thank you. We'll see.
They've been on top so far, but with nothing to show for it. James with the corner, and it's turned in. João Pedro goes away to take the credit. Morgan Rogers, and it's Ollie Watkins. And Aston Villa have a pathway to recovery. Tielemans corner, Watkins. What a substitution! Aston Villa are walking in a Watkins wonderland.
Day 34, we will speak about it. Now we are the day 18. The next match is 19. And we are going to play against Arsenal. We are going to finish the first half of the season against Nottingham Forest the next week. Of course, if the league was finishing the next match against Arsenal, we were in the race for the title. But in 38 matches, there are teams like Liverpool, like Manchester United, like Chelsea, and they are contending more than us.
Chelsea contenders more than Aston Villa, he thinks, but Aston Villa are 10 points ahead of Chelsea, by the way, and they're only 3 points behind Arsenal, and we're one game away from the halfway stage. Can you really say you're not in a title race when this position Villa?
Well, look, I think he's playing it down for sure, but why not? You know, I think they've shown that they've got amazing mentality. They stay in games. You know, they're not blowing teams away, but they've got an attitude to go and win. They've got a confidence. They believe in the manager. He believes in them. You know, his substitutions against Chelsea are absolutely fantastic. Unai Emery gets it right on so many occasions. So, look, are they strong enough as a squad of players to go 38 games and win the season? Well, look, they've got Arsenal coming up. Let's see. That's a massive game. We've seen them turn over some good sides. So, you know, if they can get another, a point even, or even 3, then you'd say, yeah, they're definitely in it. I just think if it was a transitional period for, say, like an Arsenal or Man City in terms of them, they're good, but they're not quite there, then I'd say Aston Villa got a real chance. But I think Arsenal and Man City are primed and ready to go and win the Premier League this season. And I think Aston Villa might just fall a bit short. But what they can do is have a massive say in the Premier League title race. Will they win it? Probably not. But they can definitely stop someone winning it.
Yeah, well, away at Arsenal tomorrow night, an absolutely huge game. You mentioned the substitutions there by Unai Emery.
Yeah.
I mean, he brought on Onana, Watkins and Sancho. So 3 good players to bring on, and they completely changed the game. And it worked because they won 2-1 at Chelsea. Now, here's a question that we're asking the viewers as well. Is Emery the best manager in the Premier League?
Wow, I mean, that's a big statement.
It's a question, not a statement.
I would say he is the second best manager in the league. I think Pep Guardiola, what he's done at Manchester City and his legacy is unbelievable. I know he's had a lot of money. I know Manchester City have been able to spend. They've got the best players. I think Unai Emery's done an amazing job at Aston Villa. I think he's the second best manager in the league. Anyone who says, his record is fantastic, the things he's done in his career, regardless, before Aston Villa, he was a top manager. My only question mark would be was when he was at Arsenal, it didn't quite happen for him when he had to compete at the highest level. But look, he's a brilliant manager. Pep Guardiola for me is the number one.
Is the headline after Arsenal's victory over Brighton at the Emirates. John, it is a win, albeit a cagey one. Are they convincing you more or not so much that they're going to end that 22-year wait?
Cagey or nervy, Dharmesh? I would say nervy, probably. I do like that back page because it sort of kind of focuses on Martin Odegaard there, who opened up the scoring, didn't he, with that wonderful goal. And I do think Odegaard, I think, is a terrific captain, really respected by his peers and teammates, and the sort of leader for Arteta on the pitch. So I think it was good that he gets his form. But Arsenal missing a few players. 2-0, they're cruising, and you think, oh, this is a good response to earlier in the day. Man City, obviously, a really impressive, hard-fought, ground-out win at sort of Nottingham Forest. And Arsenal have to respond. And you think, wow, OK, they're in the zone here, they're going to do it, and they're going to do it comfortably. And at 2-0, they were putting on the pressure for 3-0, and then suddenly they concede, and then all of a sudden you're feeling the nerves and the tension amongst Arsenal fans. I'm sure you could feel it within the ground. That's what it feels like at the moment. And they've gone from a place, I think, in sort of October, November, when they were winning games for fun and playing ever so well and free-flowing football and relaxing, to a place when they really needed one of the best saves you'll see this season, if not the best, from David Raya to tip it over, to maintain that 2-1 scoreline at the end. Because, wow, I mean, the Sunday Express even lead on the save, a ray of hope. And it really was that good. I mean, it was a remarkable save. But it does talk to some nerves in the Arsenal camp, and they are leaders, and they've got a massive game on Tuesday against Aston Villa, and it just feels as if, they're feeling the pressure, I think, much more than Man City, who've been there, done it, got the T-shirt. Aston Villa, who seem to be just enjoying the ride, if you like, and Arsenal, the fan expectation, the expectations in the ground, huge summer spending spree, who's, really sort of kind of taking the limelight out of those new signings. There's so much pressure and expectation on Arteta this year to win a trophy. I think he's done a great job at Arsenal overall, but he is expected to win a major trophy this year. All those things coming together, I think, is playing into that feeling of nerves.
Jason, John mentioned it there, the anxiety, the nervousness, the caginess almost. The Sunday Telegraph, they focus on that.
Arteta or the crowd?
Well, exactly. Emirates are washed with anxiety, but Arsenal maintain top spot. Sam Dean, who was at the Emirates Stadium, says in recent weeks, the Emirates Stadium has become one of the most anxious arenas in European football. Arsenal are top of the Premier League and the Champions League, into the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup, but it feels like every home match is a source of maximum stress for the club supporters and the players. Mikel Arteta says it's because of a willingness to win, but is there a fine line between willingness and desperation?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the desperation is winning at the moment. I think it doesn't take an awful lot for that atmosphere to emerge at the Emirates. I think it even goes back to the dog days of Arsene Wenger. That there was that kind of frustration that took over at times. Obviously, Arteta's moved that on quite a lot. There's much more unity around the ground. But I think that unity has become almost, as you say, that desperation to finally get over the line. This is a team that I think, once they do win the league, can probably go on and be a very dominant team for quite some time, notwithstanding what obviously Manchester City and Liverpool and others can do. I think the talent is there, the strength is there. I agree with John. I do like Mikel Arteta, although I do think at times he does need to calm down. On the touchline, I just think he transmits an awful lot of anxiety to the players, and you can see it at the Emirates. He is very, very engaged with what's going on in the pitch, but sometimes it's a bit too much. And I think those moments come sometimes too early in games. It's almost like very early on they're almost so stressful and trying to score a goal very quickly and trying to and then after that it's almost like, right, we scored, now we can't concede, we can't lose. And I think they've got, and obviously it's part of being a maturing team and winning something, and as John says, I completely agree, he has to win a major trophy this year. And I say once they get over the line, if they get over the line, it will make a huge difference to them. It will be transformative to Arsenal once they win a major trophy again. I think it will be transformative, but it's that anxiety and that desperation, as you talk about, that can they do it? And I have to admit, I do slightly fear for them. I fear that it's been so good in some ways up until this point, top of the Champions League table as well, but still haven't won anything yet. So it's a long way to go, and I would worry a lot if I was them at Manchester City, because they're looking really strong.
Maybe Arsenal are having their bad patch right now and they're still winning, because let's be honest, the Wolves game was really bad, but they won it. Last week at Everton, I was at Everton and they weren't convincing, but they won. Yesterday they weren't great, but they won. So we all remember, what was it, 4 or 5 weeks ago, that they beat Tottenham to 6 points clear, and everyone's saying Arsenal running away with it. This is the bad patch. and they're still top of the league. So perhaps this is a positive, the weather in the storm. And I know they've got a tough January coming up. They've got Villa on Tuesday, like you say. If they win that game, then all of a sudden that's a big
It's
moment.
one of two things, isn't it? It's either that, and I agree with Mark, it could well be that, because every team has a wobble, don't they, during the season. You can't just seamlessly go on and win every single game. But at the start of the season, we're talking about Liverpool in a similar way, weren't we? When they were winning all those games, we were thinking, oh, Liverpool just getting over the line, and then it suddenly fell away. So it could go that way as well.
It's a different narrative of Liverpool. It was almost like they've won the title, so they're winning 5 on the bounce. And even though they weren't playing well, it's because Liverpool, that's what they do. With Arsenal, it's like, oh, this is what Arsenal do, they're wobbling. But beat Villa, right, that's a tough call because Villa are on a great run at the moment. But I mean, I do think that Arsenal have got a tough January, especially at home. They've got Villa this week, then they've got Liverpool, then they've got Man United. So the next 3 home games are really big. But come through January, if you're still unbeaten at home, then all of a sudden, maybe this was the wobble and maybe they're kind of showing they're kind of the bottle right now. So I still think Arsenal are the best squad in the league. Yeah. And I think we've kind of put a little bit too much emphasis on Man City because it's Pep. If they lose Erling Haaland, then Man City are a different team completely. So I just think if you're an Arsenal fan, just calm down, stay calm, and it might just turn itself out in a positive way.
John, in your paper, Neil McClellan, who's at the Emirates, says the good news for Arsenal fans is that the Gunners held off a late Brighton fight back to return to the top of the table. The bad news is that there's potentially another 5 months of this nerve-jangling anxiety to go this season. Now, Jason mentioned about Mikel Arteta and his demeanour, and maybe that's adding to the anxiety. I don't know what you think, but whenever I've been at his news conferences, you're there every week like I am, I've noticed something different with Mikel Arteta this time, and he seems to be a little bit more relaxed. Maybe at odds to what Jason is saying.
Because before John says that, sorry, I agree with him. Press conferences, I'm talking about on the touchline. That's what I'm talking about. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to agree with you. I think his general demeanour has changed. Yeah. And I also think he has improved. We're starting from a low base here, in terms of behavioural standards, terms. But I do actually think then that he has... There's no doubt about it. When you are too anxious, when you are too het up, when you are screaming and, being too overzealous on that touchline, it resonates to players. It really does.
But Jurgen Klopp did it at Liverpool.
They embraced it, didn't they?
Exactly.
And Jurgen Klopp was a brilliant manager for Liverpool. But I think with Mikel Arteta,
You think it works for Arsenal?
I think it makes them nervous. But I must say, I think the point I was going to make, stop boys, basically, is that I actually think he's dramatically improved that. Whether you like that or not, I still think he's over anxious on the touchline. But from where he's come from, I think it's one of his big improvements as a manager.
No, I agree with that.
This season, look, and I tell you where that's borne out, is borne out in their disciplinary record, which is yellow cards is sort of kind of a little bit mid-table, but they haven't had a sending off. Well, last season, injuries and sendings off, you could argue, completely undermined their title challenge. Well, they haven't had one. I think that's testament to Arteta's improvement, and I do actually think that's perhaps a little bit underestimated and undervalued. I still think he could calm down a bit, but if he calms down, do you lose Arteta's passion, enthusiasm and the drive and the coach that he is? Honestly, over the course of the piece, basically, over the 6 years, he's done a remarkable job. But I do think ultimately he will, and he knows this, he'll be judged on what he wins and judged on what he, achieves as a manager, and that's got to be trophies. But I do think Mark's right. They're basically top of the Premier League, top of the Champions League. But the nerves. If last season it was injuries, we've got a bit of injuries this season. If this season they don't win it, I think it'll be down to nerves and tension.
Mark, just picking up on what you said, maybe this is Arsenal's sticky patch. Riyadh Al-Samurai in the Mail on Sunday says if Arsenal are to finally hold their nerve in the title race, then Mikel Arteta ought to spend the entirety of next summer writing notes of thanks to those who helped them through these festive weeks. Own goals are the gifts that keep on giving. If you look at their last 4 games in all competitions, the 2-1 victory against Wolves, 2 own goals. It was a penalty that separated them from Everton. There was an own goal, albeit in the Carabao Cup, against Crystal Palace. And the decisive goal, what ended up being the decisive goal against Brighton, was an own goal as well. What should we read into that, if anything?
Well, I think what we read into that is the fact that they're still getting results. Every team has most teams in normal title-winning seasons have a wobble. They have a difficult period. And I think this is Arsenal's now. And I think, had it gone the other way, had they lost those games or drawn those games, then we could say that the nerves have been affray. But I just think it's easy with Arsenal because I think we've all been to the Emirates and it can be an edgy stadium. The fans, they're very quick to, not turn, but they're very quick to get anxious. So it's an easy narrative to play into it that Arsenal fans are nervous, it's going to cost them the title. I don't know. I just think that it shows a character that they've got that they can get over the line of these games. And you talk about Arteta's, I won't say antics on the touchline, but I think what it is with Arteta, I think he knows that he still hasn't got a player on the pitch who can do that for him. So, you go back to the classic captains, like the Roy Keanes at Man United, even, Van Dijk at Liverpool. The manager can stand back and know that he's got a guy on the pitch who can do all that kind of ranting and raving and organise on the pitch. I still think Arsenal are quite naive sometimes on the pitch, quite young. I mean, they're not the youngest team, but they have a bit of inexperience. They haven't got like a Kevin De Bruyne that Man City had that could just guide them through games. I think that's Declan Rice's potential role. Maybe Martin Odegaard as captain, but they're still not quite there yet. So I think Arteta has to kind of almost micromanage from the touchline because he needs someone on the pitch to do it for him. So I think everyone at Arsenal needs to calm down a bit.
John,
it's still going well.
John, we're talking about these own goals, and I guess it's shining a light on Arsenal's attacking players, and in particular, the man we've spoken about throughout this season in Victor Gyökeres. Not just his performance yesterday, but just generally, when everybody is fit, because Kai Havertz is coming back, Gabriel Jesus has just returned, Mikel Merino's played a role up front as well. When everybody is fit, is he the guy for you that's going to spearhead Arsenal's title challenge for the rest of the season?
No, I don't think he can do it. I honestly, I worry about him a bit, and I think that he, in fairness to him, £64 million, and basically, there's a lot of Arsenal fans saying, well, he does a great job for the team and he works hard. My word, you expect a bit more from that. If you really go all in, as Arsenal did, for a striker, you expect goals too, and he's just not scoring enough. He's not contributing enough to the game. Look at his few number of touches that, again, he was barely involved yesterday, and he's really struggling, I think. In fairness to him, before he got injured at Burnley, and at that point I thought, here we go, he's scoring, and he scored at Burnley, and he was leading the charge, he was leading the press, and we think, OK, this is what it's going to be about. He was a kind of a real sort of kind of bull in the china shop, really working hard and sort of leading the press, and basically also scoring and then contributing to the team. And since he's come back from Burnley, bearing in mind he didn't have a pre-season, in fairness to him, there's a few sort of kind of strikers obviously struggling from that aspect this season. But I worry about him. And I think Arteta's kind of caught in this place where he's putting him in because he could see that he was realising his potential and is sticking with him to kind of get him that opportunity to get back to where he was and where he was threatening to be. But I actually think at the same time it's a mistake because Gabriel Jesus comes on, looks much better, he looks sharp, he looks quick, he looks, very skillful, his touch. And I think Kai Havertz will still be, when fit again, will be Arteta's first choice number 9. I really do. I don't think it's worked for Gyökeres yet. And I think of all the big signings and the statement signings in the summer, that's the one under the microscope. It's always going to be like that with the centre forward. Has he got potential to turn it around? I think so. But I look at him at times and he just looks sluggish and slow. I don't think he is. But when you're struggling like that form-wise, my word, you look at it on the pitch.
Jason, doesn't seem to be the same issues if you're Manchester City because the goals now, whereas before we were talking about an over-reliance on Erling Haaland, they are finding 3 other players who are really contributing in Tierney Reinders. As the Observer says, Reinders arrives late to deliver Christmas gifts to Jubilant City and, of course, Phil Foden. But most of all, the guy who's coming through now, Ryan Cherki, who seems to be a bargain buy for them now. They haven't looked entirely convincing either, but unnoticed almost is 8 wins in all competitions in a row. Of all the teams that Arsenal didn't want to be looking over their shoulder at, it's them, isn't it?
I think it is. The only thing I'd say about City, is I think defensively they're still quite vulnerable. I think they do give up goals, as we saw yesterday. There is always that vulnerability. I saw a lot of that in the Club World Cup. They do give up chances. That is, if you compare their defence to Arsenal's first choice defence, there is no comparison. Arsenal are far better defensively in terms of their organisation, in terms of their resilience. I think going forward, though, Manchester City suddenly are looking, as you say, much more of a unit. It's not just about Haaland. You've also got Doku and potentially got Semenyo as well. They're going to be scoring goals from everywhere. So I think that's going to be their strength in the second half of the season. We'll be going forward, blitzing teams, outscoring teams. They've already scored quite a few more goals than Arsenal already. The goal difference is better. So I think that will be their real strength, and that could be quite exciting for us because I don't think they've got the same level of control in games we've seen before, where they almost it's like relentlessness to them of obviously just beating teams, getting in front, and there's no chance of anyone coming back at them. I think there is a vulnerability there which makes it, as I say, more exciting. We see both those teams have got vulnerabilities, really. I mean, there's nobody you're looking at and thinking they're just going to win it. I mean, they can't. 2 or 3 years ago, you're thinking like Liverpool or Man City, they're just going to pull away. These two will pull away with Villa, I think, but there are vulnerabilities there that make them both catchable, I think.
I think City just look absolutely wonderful at the moment to play. It was a hard game for them at Forest yesterday.
But they do give up chances.
They do, absolutely. But they gave up the best chance of the first half, didn't they, with the cross, which, Gibbs White, slightly put off from and basically might have scored and given them the lead. And then obviously they're pegged back. But they come good and they rise again. I mean, you say almost unnoticed. Not from my perspective. I just think they've looked ominously good. And basically, they're consistent again. Yes, they've got some defensive frailty, particularly on corners. I mean, Donnarumma may be considered by some as the best keeper in the world, but he doesn't particularly like high physical balls into the box, basically. And that, I think, is their Achilles heel. But my word, as an attacking force, they are an absolute joy to watch. And they are purring. Well, Arsenal did that. Arsenal were like that in October, November, and they've hit their dip. And I just feel as if at the moment, teams will go through those highs and lows. City are definitely going. With Cherki, I have to say, what a play he looks. Basically, he's loving his football, and City look great.
Mark, just finally on this, John Percy was at the City ground. He says the Guardiola juggernaut is continuing to gather momentum. 8th victory from 9 Premier League matches, and winning without performing brilliantly is a recurring theme for potential champions. The narrative has always been City are dangerous because they've been there, they've got the know-how. Is that a thing? Is that experience that important, or do we often overestimate what that can do?
No, it's definitely a thing, because of all the things that we talk about Arsenal, we're not talking about Man City, because we know that they've overcome those hurdles. The nerve, they've done it. The manager, he's done it. The players, they've done it. Even the fans at home, they know how games go. They know how kind of title races are played out. So everything that Arsenal is still having to answer the questions about, City have done that. So that's why it matters. And the City players also know that there will be games where you have to hold your nerve, you have to win it late. And again, the Arsenal players are still having that learning process. So yeah, experience does matter. We've seen it over the years with United, with Chelsea.
It's the manager, isn't it?
And the manager as well.
Ferguson won titles by force of personality.
I mean, there must be 3 or 4 titles that Fergie won in the latter years that United weren't the best team in the league, but they've just got results. And City might be the same this season. They might not be the best team or squad in the league, but because they know how